Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Today we have the honor of meeting Federal Deputy Adriana Accorsi, who is fighting for re-election. And she wants to talk a little with us about her work, about Goiás, about the national scene, and about the causes she stands for. She has always stood out in standing up for different social groups and their demands, hasn't she? I'd like to welcome Federal Deputy Adriana Accorsi, our dear friend, to join us here. How are you, my dear?
Good afternoon, dear Andrea. It's a joy to be here with you again. And I'm great, very excited with my heart full of hope, right? We're going through a decisive moment for our country, aren't we? With these elections coming up in just a few days, right? About 40 days. And they define our future, right? The future of the people we love. If we're going to have a country that keeps advancing in social policies, in dignity for people, in democracy, in sovereignty, or if we're going to have a country that is governed by corrupt people, by people who support dictatorship, who support the privatization of social policies. Anyway, it's a very important decision. And also, Andrea, we need to decide in this country whether we'll have a Congress that's a friend of the people or a Congress that's an enemy of the people, right? That votes against people's rights, against the progress of our country. And that's why it's such an important decision. And I have the honor of being part of this historic moment, right? As a federal deputy running for reelection, you've always followed my work here. You've given me the opportunity to report on my work, right? Including, Andrea, a few days ago, I was chosen by Congresso em Foco as the top deputy from Goiás, and the first from my party, which is the second largest caucus in Brazil, as the deputy who passed the most bills, and most of them in defense of women, children, the environment, and public safety. Anyway, it's a great joy. And that's why it gives us the strength to keep pursuing this work and to keep getting better and better.
Wonderful. So, Adriana, I find it very interesting to see you there in Parliament. Why? Because you are left wing, you are progressive. You have been fighting since your youth, right? Fighting for the most vulnerable, for workers, for women. And you have an interesting background in public security because you are a career police commissioner, right?
I have been a career police commissioner for 27 years in January, Andrea. It is a great joy because it was a childhood dream of mine, right? I grew up in a neighborhood in an area of extreme social vulnerability here in Goiânia, which is Jardim Novo Mundo, where there was a lot of violence against women, against girls, and institutional violence in general, right? Lack of access to rights and government programs, and it was there, right? When I was about 8 years old, I decided to become a police officer to fight this kind of violence. And through education, with the support of my family, public education, right? Federal University of Goiás, State School of the Palmito sector, where I studied, I'm proud of my origins, right? And I was able to make that dream come true, to become a police commissioner, a commissioner for child and adolescent protection, right? Head of the civil police. At the time when I created several police stations for the protection of women and for the protection of children and adolescents in the state of Goiás. And then I continued as a congresswoman as well, and I created several more. And today, as a congresswoman, Andrea, I submit budget amendments to build women's police stations. Vehicles for the police stations, vehicles for the municipal guards who protect women, right? Like Goiânia has the Mulher Mais Segura program. It's excellent. I wrote it, but it was the mayor, Pires Rezinge, who put it into practice after I left City Hall. And it's a wonderful program that really protects women who have protective orders. So this has been a big fight in my life, like you said, since my youth.
Interesting, right? And so, all this important work, and I want to draw on all your technical background and knowledge as a woman, as a congresswoman, and also as a police officer. You, as a police officer, have had a 27-year career, right? Is that correct? How do you see this situation with Flávio Bolsonaro, who still hasn't explained himself? This is very strange, isn't it? It smells, like a scheme, right? Because for us on this side, it feels like he never explains anything or anything like that. So, with your expertise as a police chief, as a police officer, isn't this situation strange, Chief?
Wow, Andre, it's more than strange. It's actually suspicious because you see, for many years, he's been investigated for this childish term I don't like, hachadinha, which downplays the crime of corruption, right? Of taking public money, pretending to pay an employee to provide services to the public and keeping the money for themselves. He is being investigated because he bought a multi-million dollar house, which he never explained. How did he buy that house? Because look, Andre, let me tell you something. The salary of a federal deputy in Brazil is a very good salary. It's a very decent salary. It's similar to my salary as a top ranked police commissioner, a position I earned through my service and merit. It's an excellent salary compared to the salary of working people in Brazil. But never, never would you be able to buy a house that's worth 10 million, that's worth 15 million.
That's what I was going to ask you. So, can you buy a house for 6 million?
Never. And that house, look, listen, that house, the experts say, is worth much more. And he never explained how he paid for that house in cash. So these apparently criminal schemes that the police still haven't been able to uncover, nor has the justice system, because it gets to a certain point and then it seems to stop, right? In fact, his father, when he was president, spoke. He told the press that he was really going to replace the officers who were investigating his family, his son. So there is fear because, look, this is a family in Rio de Janeiro known for being part of the militias. Members of the militias are extremely dangerous criminals who kill, who threaten, right? They are the most dangerous thing in Brazil today, and we need to fight them, right? That's what Marielle was fighting against. And she was cowardly murdered because of it, right? Because she fought against them. And how many others, right? Anyway, now comes this story about the movie. But Minister Flavio Dino, with his courage, with his commitment to truth and justice, ordered the police. Because you remember, Andre, you are the most well-informed person in all of Brazil, that he had promised that in a short time, right? Flávio Bolsonaro promised the press and the courts that in a few days, he would reveal where all that money had gone, which is the most expensive movie in the entire history of Brazil. Even Oscar-winning movies didn't cost that much. Really? And nobody knows about it because it's a terrible movie that nobody even wants to show. Nobody even wants to watch. It's awful, horribly made, really poor quality. But anyway, he was supposed to be transparent about how that money was spent, and he didn't do it. And the police then, now under the orders of Minister Flávio Dino, today, right, Minister Flávio Dino, it was revealed. He ordered the civil and federal police to investigate and reveal to the courts the truth about this money, because after all, it's not private money, as he said. It's public money stolen from public coffers, like from the Social Security here in Aparecida de Goiânia. You see,
Andrea?
And from several cities and several states. So it's money diverted from banks that should have been invested in Social Security, in other public interest areas like affordable housing and so on. And it was diverted to this movie. So it's not private money like he claimed, right? It's the people's money, the Brazilian people's money. So we do need to know where it is.
All right. And Congresswoman, let's talk about something good, shall we? In 2022, you took part in the elections, right? A lot of struggle, a lot of demands. Now, once again, you're running for re-election. Well, how are you feeling? From 2022 to 2026, are you noticing any differences? how is the situation in the elections? How is this struggle going for you this time?
Well, Andre, it's really about talking about good things, because I'm very optimistic with my heart full of hope. You see, it was 4 years where our progressive caucus, right? And you followed me here, right? I was with you several times talking about my work and about the National Congress. We managed to approve practically all of President Lula's proposals, right? Social projects, programs that he sent to the National Congress, even though we are a minority caucus, right? The centrist bloc and the far right are the majority. But with popular mobilization, without coordination, without struggle, we managed to approve the return of Minha Casa Minha Vida. The income tax exemption for those who earn up to 2,500 reais, gas for the people, the Pay de Mia program, the popular pharmacy program, which was reinstated, and so many projects that are important for the dignity of our people. There's a project that I care deeply about, Andrea, because I'm the daughter of 2 teachers. And for me, education changes people's lives. It really does. So we managed to approve the resumption of the construction of the federal institutes, right? And we will reach 1,000 next year with President Lula's reelection. He has already announced that we will reach 1,000 federal institutes. Those who know, those who have studied, those who have children studying, know the quality of education in the federal institute system and how this education changes, transforms the lives of the whole family, of the entire region. And here in Goiás, we are going to open 3 new federal institutes, including one that was my personal request to the president, which is in the Cavalcante region, which is a region that needs development, needs jobs and training, right? It's a region with social vulnerability where there are the Kalungas, and people who are still left out of public policies. So we will bring them to Oranga 2 in Quirinopolis and in Catalão, where the president was here recently, right? Inaugurating one of the largest federal institutes in Brazil. And also this FAS policy and ProUni, which is the opportunity for the sons and daughters of workers to attend university, to change their lives through education, just like I changed mine. So we managed to approve all these projects and the budget for them to be carried out. And now I had the joy, of being invited by our president, President Lula, to run for re-election again. So from now on, for those who are watching here, I want to say that I am running for re-election as a federal deputy, the deputy who approved the most projects from the state of Goiás and the first from the Workers' Party in Brazil, right? And my number is 1331. Okay, guys?
Very good. And I already want to say in advance that you have my vote. What an honor, my friend.
Andrea. Thank you so much. Okay.
Not just
I just
me,
want to
right?
say my mom is your fan. She's here watching. Send a kiss to Mrs. Luce today. She's your #1 fan.
Mrs. Lucidi, a kiss from the heart, my dear. I'm with you, okay? My family and I, we've been following you for some time now, and we really admire your courage and at the same time, your balance. Because you are a fighter, but at the same time, you know when to step in and when to step back. And that in
Thank you,
these
Antonia.
times, right? Nowadays, with so much fighting, with so many situations, this is really a very necessary
That's really
quality.
great, right, Andre?
That's
Andrea?
exactly it. That's
we
right.
need to sweep the politics of hate out of our country. Hatred
Exactly.
towards women, red pill culture, hatred against Black people, LGBTQIA people, different people who think differently from us in politics. We have
That's
to
true.
sweep that away from our country. We're not like that. Yesterday, before President Lula left, in the interview on record, he said, I miss the days when I debated with Fernando Henrique, with Jose Serra, with Alckmin, because those were high-level debates without hate, without insults, right? Without absurdities, without fake news. And now we see a quality. The president did very well, right, Andrea, not to go to that debate because it's a horror show. It's like this, absurd proposals of hate, killing people, right? Things like that, totally absurd. And unfortunately, the governor here in our state also spreads a very big lie, Andre, because he has been spreading in his presidential campaign that Goiás has no crime, that Goiás has no violence. And that's not true. Violence against women has increased a lot. Sexual violence against children has increased a lot. And that's no coincidence. It's the lack of investment from the governor, despite all the efforts, especially from the women police officers. See, Andre, today in our Goiás Civil Police, half are already women as investigators, as clerks, and they fight a lot. They are getting sick because they can't stop this violence because the police stations aren't open 24 hours a day. There are few staff, few patrol cars, right? The justice system often doesn't grant the protective order they request. And then what happened to that young woman in I Was Linda's happens, she asked the police for help, but didn't get it. She was tortured, sexually assaulted, kidnapped, and nearly killed. And she lost her life. I'm sure that in a few days she would have been murdered because the violence against her was increasing every moment. And how many more will lose their lives? There have been dozens this year in Goiás. So everyone, is it really true that there's no violence? Yes, there is violence. Or is it that the lives of women in Goiás are worth nothing? So we need to tell the truth, face this reality, and fight this violence. So this is
That's
a mission
true.
that I have. I take it on personally. I was very happy with President Lula's stance, who created the group, right, to fight femicide, which I am a part of. In fact, Andre, he invited me to participate in the signing into law that made vicarious violence a crime, which is this terrible violence when the man hurts the children, kills the children to cause suffering to the mother, who often ended a violent relationship, abusive. And I went there, he invited me, I was there for the signing. And he asked me to create a project where we would go to schools, teach children about equality, love in the home, respect, fight against misogyny. And I did it. I presented it there in the Chamber of Deputies, and I hope to be reelected so I can get this project approved. In all the schools in Brazil, we would have training for education workers to discuss this topic with the children. Of course, in a playful way, in a way that's appropriate for their age, but already fighting misogyny and machismo, which are the causes, of violence against women.
Very interesting, right? And this measure is important, right? Because we have to educate children better so that they become defenders of women, right?
And
And it's
defenders of
interesting.
equality, right, Andrea? Of
That's
equality.
right, it's true.
That's what we need in our country, right?
And you touch on a point that I think we can talk about, which is public safety, right? Lula is fighting to get the public safety constitutional amendment approved. I believe it will move forward after negotiations with Hugo Mota and Davi Alcolumbre. And I keep thinking, Congresswoman, that the far right and part of the right use the issue of public safety a lot as a political platform. But when they come into power, instead of, for example, valuing public safety professionals, they do the opposite. In other words, they only have empty words. Like Bolsonaro, for example. Bolsonaro was terrible for the police officers during his 4 years in office. He dropped a bomb on Social Security regarding the police officers
And the women, thank you,
and
everyone.
the women. I just don't get it. How can some people in law enforcement still be seduced by words that are just empty promises? And when the one who's actually getting things done is Lula, is the progressive side. And you, while as a female police chief and a progressive, I think you know very well how to explain this to us. How does that work? How does
Wow, Andre,
this kind of cheap manipulation?
It's very serious. Why? There are no simple solutions to complex problems. That's a lie. That's deception. Arming the population, for example, is the opposite of public policy. The countries with the best public safety in the world are the ones where there are fewer guns around, right? Sometimes even police officers in certain situations, like in Japan, don't need to use guns. So arming the population is the opposite. It's like saying, look, as the state, I'm not going to guarantee your family's safety. If you have money, you buy a gun and defend your family yourself. That's the opposite. What does that cause? Road rage, threats at home, femicide, fights like that day when the man killed the father of an autistic child because the little boy was speaking a bit loudly. That kind of cowardice, that kind of lack of self-control, because many people are not prepared to use firearms. And I took part in the transition from the Bolsonaro government to the Lula government precisely on this issue, Andrea? And the Brazilian army told us that they had lost control over firearms in Brazil. Bolsonaro took it away from the federal police, handed it over to the army, and the army didn't have control. They didn't know who had firearms in Brazil. It was completely absurd. And following our guidance, President Lula signed the decree at his inauguration. Right, on the day of the inauguration, changing that completely disorganized firearms regulation that existed in Brazil. And that allowed militias and organized crime to arm themselves with heavy weapons that until then were only permitted for the army. That's what the Bolsonaro government did. It didn't improve anything for the police. Nothing. Not a single cent. On the contrary, they took away the retirement time we had and increased it, especially for women, as always, because they hate women, right? The far right hates women. That's killing us. That's our torment. In fact, now, Andrea, the far right is against us shutting down Discord, where pedophilia is running rampant and where men are making girls commit suicide, take their own lives, like what happened just a few days ago. They are against criminalizing misogyny, which is the hatred against women that is being spread, especially to young people. They are against it. Even the female representatives, you see, Andrea, the female representatives. So what happens then? The states governed by the far right, like Rio de Janeiro and Sao Paulo, do not fight organized crime. Have you noticed that? In Sao Paulo, for example, the police chief, who was the top expert in organized crime in Brazil, was murdered in public this year, 2026. This year, on the street, right in the middle of the street, right? And in Rio de Janeiro, we know, right? It's doctors, it's everyone. There's murder every day. It's endless violence. And then President Lula presents this security amendment so that the federal police, together with the state police, can fight it. With resources, with laws, with the possibility of interception of blocking these criminals' bank accounts abroad. And we manage it with a lot of struggle, Andrea, including myself, as I was the vice president of the special committee, the only one from the left on the committee. I fought hard and we managed to get it approved. And now it's stuck in the Senate. It's on hold. We will keep fighting, just like the end of the 6-day work week, which is
That's what I was going to ask you.
It's a big fight for us. I was the first to sign here in the state of Goiás. We passed it in the chamber. And now on the 30th, we will have a big mobilization all over Brazil so that Acolumbre will put ending the 6-day work week on the agenda. Because this is a right for the working class. And for us women, even more so, because our schedule is 7 days straight, 7x0. Isn't that right,
That's
Andrea? Right. We work every day. And on our day off, we wash dishes, we wash clothes, we wash the girls' sandals, we take care of the house. Me too, right? So that's how it is. We want more days for Brazilian women to rest, practice self-care, read, play with their children, and go out.
Perfect. That's what I was going to ask you. Yeah, because Globo reported that Flávio Bolsonaro is recruiting some senators to try to hinder the effort to end the 6-day work week. Because they don't want it to be approved, not at all, especially not now before the elections. Well, how do you see this movement? Because, they say they're in favor of public safety, but in reality, they can't fight crime. It's just hypocrisy. Many times, they say they are in favor of workers, but when there's a proposal like this, they work behind the scenes to make sure it doesn't move forward or get approved. How are you fighting this while also making people aware of this hypocrisy and this dishonesty among colleagues? They end up being fellow parliamentarians who are there. The
Thank
struggle
you.
must be very difficult.
Very well. The correct term is hypocrisy. They defend the family, but they support laws that protect pedophiles, like the parental alienation law. They are against the femicide law. They are against the laws, right, that fight misogyny and pedophilia on social media. They are against them. They say they defend the family, but they only want to defend their own family, the one that gets rich. The rest can suffer violence, femicide, domestic violence, pedophilia. They don't allow us to fight, but we win, Andre, because we have popular support. We have the support of the people, like it was with the shielding constitutional amendment proposal, right? Do you remember? They wanted to approve it, and they did, right? A law that shielded deputies and senators from being investigated. They could commit pedophilia, theft, corruption, whatever it was, they couldn't be investigated. And we managed to overturn that law in the Senate. And in the same way, Andre, I truly believe. I believe that we are going to approve the Public Security Constitutional Amendment proposal, which will bring a lot of resources to the federal police, to the state police, and to the municipal guards to fight organized crime, to fight major drug trafficking. These people who put small time criminals out there to deal drugs, steal cell phones, and rob people in the communities, right? We need to fight major drug trafficking. Mainly, we need to find the accounts where they hide their money, which is usually outside the country. So that has to be the federal police. A state police force doesn't have the right, jurisdiction, or legal authority to go to another country, block an account, and seize those assets. Why is organized crime so powerful? Because they have a lot of money from bank robberies, cell phone thefts, robberies of wealthy people. They have a lot of money. And that's why they have so much power, including the ability to corrupt politicians, police officers, and authorities. And that's what we want to fight against. And they don't want to end the 6-on-1 off schedule because they defend big capital. They defend those big business owners who don't want to give even a tiny bit of their profit to their workers. Even though in most countries, including the United States, which they defend so much, Germany, England, and Portugal, the 5-on, 2-off schedule is already in place. And on this day off, the worker spends, they help the economy grow and improve. So it's an uninformed elite. It's a cruel elite. Sometimes, Andre, I get the impression that if they could go back to slavery in the whipping post, they would prefer that for the working people. But we are fighters. We are Brazilians. We never give up, right? So we will keep fighting. And I am very excited, hopeful that we will achieve this victory. And with President Lula's re-election, we will make much more progress in social policies and the social advancement of the working class. So improving the minimum wage even more, improving universities, building more federal institutes, expanding the Minha Casa, Minha Vida program, right? Expanding the Farmácia Popular program so that poor people can get free medication. This is very important, Andre. In a country that is aging like Brazil. Brazil is aging very quickly, much faster than Europe, right? The birth rate in Brazil has dropped drastically. So people use a lot of medication because they are elderly. That's why the popular pharmacy is very important. And the other project, which is the People's Gas program, the People's Gas, everyone in the Federal Social Registry receives gas for free. So there's no danger of cooking with firewood or alcohol, right? So they can prepare their food. So all of this is important. And what I think is coolest, Andre, and what I devote a lot of time to here in Goiás, which is a state with a lot of agriculture and livestock, right? It's the encouragement of family farming and organic food, right? So I've helped a lot this year, just this year, I allocated 5 million to CONAP to purchase food from small family farms, which is these small producers, which is the mother and the children, which is the father and the children and the woman. It's family farming. It's that little house, right? That small backyard and all. So it buys this food, which is usually of very high quality, organic, right? And donates it. It donates it to the daycare, to the school, to parents, to Pestalozzi. And that's why we are fighting hunger in Brazil and in Goiás this way. So it's something really nice that President Lula wants to expand a great deal. And the other project that he announced and presented here in Goiás, Andre, which was that day in Catalan, that in the next term, he will create a major full-time school program for all children and teenagers in Brazil, with a swimming pool, with a court, with a theater, with a psychologist, with tutoring, so that all children have the right and access to quality education, right? My daughter does, including a very dear teacher named Jessica, whom I love. But all children have this right. And so that mothers can work peacefully, knowing that their child is in a safe place. So
That's
I'm
right.
really excited. And I ask you all, let's win in the first round so President Lula can get back to work right away on October 8th and do so much more for us.
That's true. I've always said here, Congresswoman, that there's no better candidate. Lula is the most prepared. Lula is the one who says he's going to do something and actually does it, like the income tax exemption for workers who earn up to 5,000 reais. So he doesn't just talk, he gets things done, and he's the most qualified. And I also believe that with Lula's victory, even you, ma'am, the Congresswoman, will be able to make much more headway in the fight against violence towards women. And today, it's a major concern for Lula's government, given the sad reality in several states, like Goiás, for example, right? There's a lot of violence. And I know this will create a very favorable environment for Congresswomen like you, right? Capable women who have a lot of experience in law enforcement to really help improve holding these criminals accountable and truly protecting women. So I always say there is no better candidate for Brazil than Lula. Do DL.
That's good.
All right,
everyone.
then, my dear. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. It's a
I
pleasure.
really appreciate
okay?
your presence. What is your number again? The one you mentioned?
1331 1331 1331. It's 13 Lula and 1330 1331. Adriana Correa Costa.
Write it down, everyone, so we don't forget. 1331. Congresswoman Adriana Accorsi from Goiás. She's the one we trust. Okay, my dear? Thank you so much for being here. And if you can come back here before the election, it would be really nice for you to update us on everything that's happening. Okay? Okay? Thank you so much. Big kiss to everyone who is watching us, especially to our dear Andrea Gonçalves, who gives us this opportunity to have this conversation. I'm the one who should thank you, dear. Bye bye. See you next time. Take care. God bless. Well, my dear, Federal Deputy Adriana Accorsi is a fighter here in Goiás. She has my respect and my affection, and she really makes a difference here. And there's no one better. It's like Lula. There's no one better. You see, I really appreciate you being here until now. If you can leave your comment, give your opinion, your suggestions, all right? It's very important for us to be together and to keep showing up so that we can elect the largest number of federal deputies and senators who will provide the necessary support so that Lula can do the broadest and most effective work possible for all of us, Brazilians, always aiming for the public interest and especially making a difference for those who are younger, vulnerable, and for those who are in a more difficult situation, which is for sure one of Lula's main causes, all right? And it's us, the workers especially. So smash the like button, like, comment, and most importantly, share the live stream so we can reach more people. Kisses. See you on the next live stream. Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you very much. And don't forget, Lula for a fourth term. We're in this together.